When it came to Fed speak today, I characterized them as hawkish because it sort of signaled rates would be higher for longer. But there's so much nuance these days. What would you call them?
I would say you got a little bit of everything. But let's start with Michelle Bowman. She's the Federal Reserve Board governor who spoke on Saturday, one day after two other Fed officials, two doves, seemed to indicate that they were getting ready to say, maybe it is time to pause. But Michelle Bowman said then that she thinks there's going to be a need for more rate hikes. That's pretty much what she's expecting now. And she said it again today. Let's listen.
I supported raising the federal funds rate at our July meeting, and I expect that additional increases will likely be needed to lower inflation to the FOMC's goal. I'll be looking for evidence that inflation is on a consistent and meaningful downward path as I consider whether further increases in the federal funds rate will be needed and how long the federal funds rate will need to remain at a sufficiently restrictive level.
And far from saying that she sees evidence that inflation is on a sustainable downward path, she said inflation is still above the Fed's target. That's one of the things she stressed. And quote unquote, the labor market continues to be tight. That's how she looks at the jobs report on Friday, which many people said was mixed. Now let's look at John Williams. John Williams is president of the New York Fed. That means the number 3 in command, more or less, at the Federal Reserve. And he said it's an open question if further rate hikes are needed. That's why I put him kind of as the centrist, certainly not the hawk at this point. Also, he says the data are moving in the right direction. He does say, though, that supply-demand imbalances must shrink to get inflation to 2%. Think about the labor market, right? We've had a shortage of workers coming out of the pandemic, more jobs available. He thinks that needs to come into balance. I guess he's also talking about wages there. He does expect, this was more definite, this was more hawkish, the Fed to keep a restrictive stance for some time, although he does say, hey, yeah, rate cuts could be warranted next year if inflation slows. He said all this in an interview with the New York Times. So let's look at what we're looking for on Friday, or excuse me, Thursday, Asia Friday, that is. CPI is supposed to come in on the headline at 3.3%, up from 3.0 year over year in June, okay? That's base effects, according to Bloomberg Economics, although they do expect that headline CPI to stay in a range 3.3 to 3.5 for a while. The core CPI, taking out food and energy, is supposed to go from 4.8 year over year to 4.7 year over year. That's still way too high for the Fed. So it's still a debate. It's still going to be watching the data, Heidi. We're going to get the inflation report on Friday, and then we still have another inflation report. But for now, like I say, Bowman's a hawk. I think John Williams still trying to make up his mind and watching the numbers.